Well, just a little while ago, Israel announced the name for this operation. It's calling it Operation Protective Edge. And immediately after that announcement was made, there were 2 airstrikes on Gaza, one down near the Egyptian border and one in central Gaza. Now,
as Operation Protective Edge continues, dozens of Israeli troops and over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed. Over 100,000 residents have been displaced as the heavy bombardment of the Gaza Strip intensifies. Rescue workers and hospitals have become overwhelmed, struggling to deal with the scale of the crisis as it unfolds.
This right here, Salam Tower, was hit last night. The whole building collapsed. At least 20 are dead, and they're still trying to pull bodies out right now.
All across Gaza, there are scenes of people desperately sifting through rubble to save whatever they can.
Can you tell us what happened here?
We was all civil people here. We was sleeping.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock, we heard the crowd in the street. Some people was screaming at us to get out from our house. Here, maybe 200 persons, all of them civil. Because every department was maybe 3 or 5 families. You know, they transferred from the other places which hit it also.
So they got the phone call saying...
No, there is no phone calls or no any attention to us to get out.
You're from Shijaya?
Yeah, we come here to with our friend's house.
Like refugee?
Yeah, maybe half the people here is refugee also.
Can you think, is there any reason you think the Israelis would have targeted this place?
No, there's no reason.
No
Because
reason.
the civil people, really.
Okay.
Until this moment, we do not believe what happened for us. You know, its area was called, it's the more safety zone in Gaza. And we full trust of that. Because of all of you, the right was happened.
So where will you go now?
We are in the street. And our family is also in the street.
We're in a Maghazi camp. It's a refugee camp, a little south of Gaza City. And it's a city of ghosts. Most people have left or are staying inside or have fled somewhere else. There was a lot of heavy fighting here last night. You can kind of drive through the streets and see the damage everywhere. But yeah, it has a look of an abandoned city. Behind me is the Al-Aqsa Hospital. Oh, shit. So second take this time. Behind me is the Al-Aqsa Hospital. You can see it was hit here, here, and here. Patients had to be evacuated. The IDF has claimed that someone was firing out of here. Now, the hospital is still up and running. It's not obviously at full capacity. It's still really tense here. We've just heard a shell that sounded extremely, extremely close. But the people here, they have no choice. They've got to keep this thing running. So over 40% of Gaza has been told to evacuate by the Israeli forces, and people are fleeing, if they can, to anywhere they think is safe. One of the only places people think is safe is right here in Shifa Hospital. Now, we were here a few days ago. There were far less people here, and there were no shelters sort of set up, but people are here, and unfortunately it looks like they're preparing to be here for a while.
If I go to America and I take my country people to America and I lift you out, kick you out your home, you say to me, bye, or you want to fight with me to take your home? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to fight to take your home, to be freedom.
Can you tell us how you ended up in this wheelchair?
It was in 2001 when I'm in Shijaya, Israeli soldier shot me in my back. And I have a fracture in my back, and this is make me to meet disabilities, yeah, and paraplegia. I cannot move my down body. But there is a problem. You don't have permission to go outside Gaza. If you are dangerous or not dangerous for Israel.
You're trapped here.
Yeah, I'm stay here in Gaza because no permission to go outside Gaza.
Palestine went from this to this, and it didn't happen overnight.
Eventually, our borders will extend from Lebanon to the Great Desert, which is Saudi Arabia, and then from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates. So we have the Mediterranean behind us, the Kurds in front of us, Lebanon, which really needs the umbrella of protection of Israel. And then we're going to take, I believe we're going to take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai and purify those places.
A peace deal has finally been struck. But peace takes more than signatures and handshakes. The world is talking about the Israel-UAE deal. Tonight we'll break it down for you. We'll discuss what it means. The deal between Israel and the UAE is called the Abraham Accord. It's been brokered by the United States. Israel and the UAE have no diplomatic relationship. They do not recognize each other. Their leaders do not talk to each other. All of that will change now. Israel and the UAE will now establish full diplomatic relations. Both sides will set up their embassies. Their diplomats can meet. Leaders will hold bilateral talks. So what is the United States doing here? Well, a few years back, US President Donald Trump had unveiled his peace plan for West Asia. an attempt to settle the long-standing territorial dispute between Israel and Palestine. Trump's plans heavily favor Israel. One of the major sticking points is the ownership of West Bank. It's a chunk of land that lies towards the west of River Jordan, hence the name West Bank. Now, Israel and Palestine both stake claim over this piece of land. But West Bank has been occupied by Israel since 1967. Donald Trump's plan allots different territories of the West Bank to Israel. But that agreement has not gone anywhere. So some time back, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to annex these territories, take them. With less than 90 days left for the US election, Donald Trump is taking a victory lap.
I want to thank the leaders of Israel and the UAE for their courage and for their leadership to forge this tremendous agreement. It will be known as the Abraham Accord.
What about Palestinian leaders? Well, they're not happy about this. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has denounced the accord.
In exchange for this, we will sell out Palestine and Palestinian rights. And the irony is, after doing all of this, they come and say, we did that for the Palestinians. No, you did not do that for me. I never expected this dagger, poison dagger, to come from an Arab country.
I know who you are, and I know what you did. You're a traitor. This is Kubasov. He's a traitor. You work for the Cardassians. What's going on here? See for yourself. Secretary Kubas, special liaison between the Cardassian occupation forces and their pawns in the Bajoran government.
I served the only recognized government on Bajor during the occupation.
Recognized by the Cardassians?
If it wasn't for us, the situation on Bajor would have been 10 times worse than it was.
Maybe. But I don't see how you could know that, seeing that you spent nearly all your time here on the station. I remember Gul Dukat telling me once that you were his favorite Bajoran. This is Major Kira, the highest-ranking Bajoran on the station.
Then I suppose you're the one I should be talking to.
Make it brief. I don't enjoy talking to collaborators.
I'm not asking you to like me. I'm simply requesting that I be allowed to return home.
Your request is denied. When the Cardassians needed a new group of Bajorans to work in the mines, who approved those work orders?
The Bajoran government.
Whose signature was on those authorization forms?
Fine.
Today I bring this marker to show a great blessing, the blessing of a new Middle East between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and our other neighbors. We will not only bring down barriers between Israel and our neighbors, we'll build a new corridor of peace and prosperity that connects Asia through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, to Europe. This is an extraordinary change, a monumental change, another pivot of history.
I don't think people have any idea what's really happening in Gaza and why it is happening. A few weeks ago, right before this war in Gaza ignites, Netanyahu goes to the United Nations General Assembly and he holds up this map and declares his plan for a new Middle East. And people are going, what is this stupid line this guy's drawing with a red marker? What it is an economic corridor that stretches all the way from India to the United Arab Emirates, into Saudi Arabia, into Jordan, Israel, and then finally to the entire European continent. I mean, the United States at this point, seeing their influence starting to fade, seeing the relevance of the dollar recede after they stole $300 billion from Russia. You have all these spooks in Washington and Tel Aviv, running around desperately trying to counter BRICS and counter China's new Silk Road. And as enormous and important as all of this is just one aspect. You still have the gas. How can we talk about the Middle East without talking about gas and oil? When the US instigated the Maidan coup in 2014, that wasn't just about NATO expansion and encirclement of Russia. This was about surrounding, controlling, and cutting off Russian gas to Europe. Russia is the country with the largest proven reserves of natural gas. Control Ukraine, and you control the pipelines that feed and supply Russian gas to Europe. For decades, you've had US politicians, Republican and Democrat, from every administration, openly saying on camera, we don't want Nord Stream.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
You want to have pipelines that don't go through Ukraine and Russia. For years, we've tried to get the Europeans to be interested in different pipeline routes. It's time to do that. You want to depend more on the North American energy platform, the tremendous bounty of oil and gas that we're finding in North America.
Lo and behold, Nord Stream 1 and 2 are blown up. I mean, this is without question the most egregious, the largest terrorist attack on European infrastructure in modern history. You combine that with the sanction packages from the European Union, banning Russian oil and gas. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. So now there's no more Russian gas coming into Europe. And just like that, the United States have achieved a long-standing foreign policy objective. Now, the only other country with enormous gas reserves, the second largest in the world, is Iran. Iran signed the nuclear deal in 2015 and 2016. They're complying in every way imaginable. The IAEA at the UN cannot be happier. And then the United States, the guys who orchestrated the whole deal, go back on their word and they rip it off just like that and reimpose sanctions on Iran. So now Iran is barred from selling its oil and gas to Europe and others. So Russia and Iran, the two countries with the largest gas reserves, are out of the picture. Then Israel, all of a sudden, proposed themselves as a solution to the European Union's gas shortages.
Take our trilateral energy, for example, that we closed in June with Egypt and Israel. It has played an important role in our strategy to get rid of the Russian fossil fuels.
How convenient. How convenient. In 2010, they conduct a geological survey and find this monstrous giant gas field in the Middle East. It's called the Leviathan, and it's in the Mediterranean Sea on the Levantine Basin. That means it's right off the coast of Palestine, Lebanon, Syria. Syria initially declines offers over its gas reserves and simultaneously refuses to lay pipes for a Qatari gas project. What a coincidence. Barely a year later, war breaks out in Syria. And who's funding it? Qatar and Israel and the United States are just some of the parties funding and running this war to overthrow the government in Damascus. Today, the United States control 1/3 of Syria. They control all of Syria's oil fields, and Israel is bombing Syria's most vital port, Latakia, on a regular basis. So they're cutting off all the oil revenue and destroying, crippling any maritime activity, such as trade, such as gas exploration. Another major port on the Levantine coast is in Beirut, which mysteriously explodes in 2020. And so Israel, proposing itself as a solution to Europe's gas shortages, shows up with an FPSO, this enormous gas extraction vessel, and tries stealing gas from Lebanon's Karish gas field. And, this reignites a huge maritime border dispute. And Israel has to go and beg the United States to solve this diplomatically because Hezbollah said, if you steal 1 cubic inch of our gas, we will fire our missiles on your ship. Now we come to Gaza. Gaza also has its own unexplored gas field. Gaza is also a concentration camp run by the Israelis. And it's been under siege by Egypt and Israel under naval blockade since 2007. I mean, you can't even fish properly, let alone extract gas. And so now, the Lebanese, the Syrian, the Palestinian ports, they're all out of action, and the only working port left in the coast is the Israeli port on Haifa. I mean, how convenient. This makes Israel the only one able to explore gas and implement an economic corridor like the one that Netanyahu held up at the UN. So in other words, Israel and the United States together killed off all the competition, stole their goods, and cornered the market. But as winter is approaching, Israel desperately needs to get that gas for Europe. But there's no stability. There can never be stability in the region without solving the Palestinian question. Israel is just hoping the Palestinians will run away in fear into the desert. They've literally said this. They want to put them in the desert. They want people in Gaza to go to the Sinai Desert and push the people in the West Bank into Jordan. This is genocide and ethnic cleansing without question. But it also has economic and geopolitical implications. Hamas and the collective resistance, when they found out about Israel's plan and Saudi Arabia's wishes to normalize ties with Israel, which would destroy any hope of a Palestinian state, this forced their hand. It became clear they needed to act and respond immediately, lest Palestine be lost forever. For Palestinians, this is, and always has been, a matter of life and death, to be or not to be. Either the resistance axis and the global south expel the American and Israeli colonizers from the Middle East, or Israel and the United States will continue occupying the region, choking off the new Silk Road, plundering Syria's oil, and keeping Russian, Iranian, and Arab gas cut off from the world market. This is a decisive moment, and not just for Palestine, because the victors will end up drawing the new map of the world to come.
Okay, so I'm here on the green line separating the West Bank from Israel, and you can see behind me there's a fossil fuel terminal. So the Israeli government are actually pumping up fossil fuels from this terminal. The concerning thing is it's right on the border. This land used to be Palestinian, and now the Israelis are literally stealing this resource. And now we have in Europe a recent trade deal importing fossil fuels from Israel. And my question is, do we really want to take stolen goods into Europe from the occupied territories?
Israel-Palestine war. Israel wants to seize Gaza's multi-billion-dollar gas field. Yeah, there's $500 billion in gas and oil at stake here. So now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, go see Children of the Flower Moon with De Niro, by the way.
Yeah.
All about some natives that they want to kill them because they got oil under their land. See if the irony is lost on you. I bet it will be.
You see this? Our gas is our right.
אז השאלה היא מאוד פשוטה, מהי תמונת הניצחון שלכם? מאוד פשוט, 3 מילים, שנייה, תחשוב על זה. הנה גירוש התיישבות, מעולה, אחלה תשובה.
If I take my telephone now, I can assure you that hundreds of Jewish families will move today, immediately, with the children, to the Gaza area. And they will not ask what are the conditions.
What should the 2.3 million Palestinians do? Where should they go?
To the world. The Palestinians that live in Gaza have no right to stay in Gaza.
The Abu Rajab family is slowly but surely being forced from the cluster of apartment buildings which are their ancestral family home. Israeli settlers arrived on July 25th, broke into 3 of the apartments and moved in. Within hours, the army turned the site into a closed military zone, in effect providing protection to the settlers and restricting the Abu Rajab's access to their own home. The family say they've also been harassed by the settlers, including verbal abuse, rocks and sewage thrown at them. Hatem Abu Rajab has lost hope anyone will help his family. The settlers live here illegally, but they do have some high-profile political support. The settlers have proudly displayed a quote from 2013 from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It says that this house must be populated. Supporters from other areas arrived bearing gifts. We asked this man if the settlers will leave. He says, never. We've lived here for 2,000 years. A representative of the settler movement echoes that opinion.
We've waited 5 years for a process. Now we
jumped the gun a little bit. We pushed it ahead. We're tired of waiting around, and especially with certain actions that have happened in the last few weeks showing a lack of sovereignty, of Jewish sovereignty. We, what you would call the settlers, we think we're the Jewish community of Hebron, have pushed forward and have gone back to a building that we rightfully own.
Hebron is a divided city, and at its heart live around 700 Jewish Israelis in settlements. They are guarded by a larger number of Israeli soldiers and police. 37,000 Palestinians live in the same area, but their movement is severely restricted by dozens of military checkpoints. The city has a tense atmosphere, and the occupation of the Abu Rajab home is only adding to that.
נו? נו כמה ערבים, מי גבי? מי גבי? אני יהודי גאה, מי גבי? מי גבי? הזין, מי גבי? מי גבי? אתה עבריין וגנב. לא, אתה עבריין. מי גבי? בוא תראה הילדים שלך, יהודי אחד עומד פה מול כולם, תראה, אתה לא עושים כלום. לא, אל תקרב ממני. הייתי לך קוקסינלים, גם אתה קוקסינל, גם אתה קוקסינל. אתם גולבים לי אדמה, חבוש וגנבים. חנייה, בטח לא ראיתי אותך, מה נשמע, יא זבל? הכל בסדר? למה אתה זורע?
תראה מה עשה? תראה מה עשה? תראה מה עשה?
זה לך לזרוע, יא זין. תזמין למשטרה. מה, זה לך לזרוע, למה המשטרה? זה לך לזרוע, ככה לזרוע? איך זורמים? ככה זורמים? אדמה שלי, אני זורע פה. בוא, זה אדמה שלי, אף אחד לא מדבר איתי. אף אחד לא מדבר איתי. אני זורע, אני עובד עכשיו, אני זורע. בוא, אתה מפריע לזרוע בשטח שלי. תראה כמה ערבים קוקסינלים עומדים פה, פה של פחדנים. אתם גברים, מה? כי הצבא שומר עליכם, אתם גברים, צה"ל שומר עליכם, מה יא אפסים?
خليكم عندك تراكتور يا ولاد يا ولاد.
איך אני זורע? איך אני זורע? איך אני זורע? יפה? מנין הזריעות שלי? תסתכלו איך אני זורע, יפה. הזבלות.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي. Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the point? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
it's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
A Palestinian toddler has been burnt to death in an arson attack by suspected Israeli settlers on his family home. The attack happened in the village of Duma, near the northern city of Nablus. It lies in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian security officials say 2 people, believed to be Jewish settlers, set the house on fire. At least 3 other people were injured in the fire, including the boy's parents and his 4-year-old brother.
And what witnesses are telling us is that an incendiary device was thrown through this window, this is the bedroom window, and landed on their bed. So there would have been very little time to get out, which is why we're being told the family weren't able to get to the baby on time. One witness described what he said were 2 masked men standing behind this window and watching. We spoke to an ambulance driver who arrived here, who actually pulled the body of Ali out. The way he described it was a block of charcoal, really, this baby. And also the witness described the father screaming when he heard this happen. Ambulance and fire services took around 40 minutes to get here. It's the people of the village that took the family members, the parents and the 4-year-old brother to the hospital.
What are neighbours saying? Because that's not the only house that was attacked.
That's right. There's a neighbour's house that's also been completely burnt down. Joe will just focus on some of the details of this bedroom. It's completely singed. That family was not home at the time. And the father of the son who owns that house said luckily they were in Nablus because the children are off. Otherwise, they could have perhaps reached such a tragic end as well. What people here will tell you is that settlers very often carry out these attacks. It's just the result that this time has been different. And they have no protection. These illegal settlements, the settlers are armed. They can be extremely violent. Often the Israeli security forces will protect them. And the Palestinians don't have that kind of protection, so they're vulnerable to these kind of things. And they say, we spoke to one Palestinian official here, he said there is a culture of impunity, even though we're hearing strong language coming out of Israel today, calling this a terrorist attack, calling these terrorists. So this is the tension you see here. The settlers can turn extremely violent, they're armed, and the people here say they have absolutely no defense against that.
In an average month, the Israeli government issues about 2,000 gun licenses. But over the last 3 months, the number doubled as Israelis take advantage of looser rules for handguns. Israel's government says it's just getting started.
It looks like something out of an action movie, but this training center deep in the West Bank is training civilians to use guns. They say they are needed to prevent terrorist attacks.
Israel's far-right national security minister, Itamar ben-gvir, is promising change, aiming to issue 5 times as many licenses per month.
Most moms don't want their kids anywhere near guns. Why did you bring your daughter here?
We live in a reality where it is almost a necessity.
The current plan calls for shortening waiting times, doubling the staff who issue licenses, and eliminating interviews for firefighters, police, and military reservists. Gun control advocates say more firearms will lead to vigilante justice with little accountability.
This is where you were shot, right here?
Hadar Gurab is 15, a Palestinian in Jerusalem's Old City. Last month, he was walking home when he says an Orthodox Jewish neighbor blocked their shared alleyway. They began arguing, and the man started shooting. One bullet grazed Hadar's neck, another struck his arm. Israeli police say the shooter was briefly placed under house arrest, then conditionally released.
The Israeli government wants more of these kinds of people to have handguns. Does that scare you?
He says, not just me, everyone will be scared. After what happened to me, people here are scared to walk alone.
I have a son, 1 year and 7 months old, and I want to protect the Palestinians from Hamas because they're living near villages of Palestinians.
But what was the response of the international community? Nothing. Keeping the ears and eyes always closed. Within this context, we have discussed in many times, in many sessions, what can we do? Generally, there was a consensus in the political bureau. We have to move, we have to take action. If we don't do it, Palestine will be forgotten totally and deleted from the international map.